good morning, and a welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Ann, and 99.8% Quindy, with a single 1/10% allocated to the possibly fictional existence of Justin and John. Anyway, hi guys. Hi, how are you? I see lobster tots. That's it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. Lobster tots sound pretty crazy. Tasty, but crazy. Y'all are higher carb than me. It's day 3 of keto. Hey, my energy's back because I normally eat low carb, so I guess I only get 1 day of keto flu. Apparently, that's what it feels like. Also, I got sleep last night. Magical sleep. Leftover stir fry. Yeah, I've done that. Nice. Very nice. Very nice. All y'all enjoy your foods. I had eggs and flax muffins, which flax muffins don't sound exciting, but I make a very tasty flax muffin. It's actually half and half flax seed ground up and almond flour. And one of them is everything flavored. And one of them is my favorite Indian drink mix that I decided to try to make a muffin out of, and it worked. Yeah, I can't have tea still, Crowley. I'm still being kind of babying my guts until I get a little more solid here. But we are progressing. We're getting better. So we will see how it goes today on ye old guts. And let's see, what do we want to work on today? I should have looked at this guy last night, but I had nothing. But the honey defeats the keto agent, so I had to. I'm actually not even doing butter right now because dairy, so I'll work that in later. But coconut oil. Yeah, keto being high fat. I'm high. Although I did misspeak yesterday. I actually have more carbs in my diet than I thought because I go high veggie keto these days. So I go like 15 to 18 grams a day for induction. I thought it was lower, but then I really looked at it and I'm like, no, because I eat a lot of salad. I eat a lot of vegetables. Hey, everybody. Yeah, I had some severe gastric upset there, like panic level, bad. Because there's always when you have Crohn's or IBS or whatever, it's always a danger. If one part of your digestive system gets upset, the rest of it might get upset, and then you're in deep doo-doo. So very happy to be feeling a bit better today. So it's all just trying to get back on the even keel so that I have energy for everything. I'm kind of looking at this. We definitely don't have like highlights on the purple back here. I kind of feel like I need to tackle the gold at this point to see how bright it's going to be. So perhaps we will work on gold today. You're thinking paleo, agent. Keto is the true low-carb diet. Keto puts you into ketosis because you're not allowed to have really any sugars. You are allowed a little bit of like sugar alcohols, which don't spike your blood sugar. The key is to kind of keep from spiking your blood sugar, so you can't have any form of sweetener that does impact blood sugar. So that leaves you with like stevia and monk fruit, erythritol, things like that. So to get your body in ketosis, you have to be eating. To start out, you have to be eating 20 grams of carbs or less per day. And if you look at that, that's just like nothing. Yeah, paleo is very close to what I do normally. A low-carb paleo is what I normally am on. But when I really need, I have learned that keto is just very, let me get my gold mixed up. Keto is a very anti-inflammatory diet. And so when I have inflammation, I go keto. I'm so close to it anyway. You can have whiskey and scotch on keto. You just have to like not have whiskey and scotch on induction. But yeah, hard liquors are permitted on keto. Sugar alcohols, like alcohol sugars, don't count. They don't act on your blood sugar like normal ones do. You can't have sugary mixed drinks, but you can have hard liquor. But yeah, again, not in induction. So for the first 2 weeks, you'd have to skip it. But yeah, and a lot of people make fun of the keto diet, but it's how I lost 60 pounds, and it's what I go to whenever I have any of my health, like my Crohn's, when it flares up. That's what I go, and this thing has fixed it. Like I've been on this, having these issues ever since David came back from ReaperCon, and 3 days on keto, and the symptoms are almost gone. So, think what you will, but there's a great book on it, Dogfather, called "The New Atkins for New You," I think is what it is, and it's the re-envisioned Atkins, which essentially encourages you to eat a lot of vegetables. But they also talk a lot about that kind of thing. But yeah, on normal keto you can have hard liquor, and you can even have wine. Like, you just have to fit it into your carb tolerance. So like a lot of wines, like red wines, tend to be a little lower carb. You can have red wine on keto, no problem. All right, let me see here. What do I want to do for this? We're going pretty saturated, so I think I need to go punchy. Punchy yellow. Punchy yellow is candlelight yellow, I think. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, I ran into the same thing, guys, when I went gluten-free for the first time. When my surgeon recommended I try gluten-free, and at first I was horrified at the thought of giving up my beloved crackers and all of those things. I wasn't a big bread person, but I was a big cracker person. But I did it, and beer. I couldn't have regular beer anymore. But I did it, and I lost like 15 pounds and felt a lot better. So then my friend Bridget had gone on keto and lost 50 pounds. And was, a very scientifically minded person. The person I got the Kiki from, by the way. So I asked her about it, and that got me kind of trying keto, and it worked so well, and I felt so good on it that I just kept on it for 2 years, more than 2 years. And then when I came out here for David, that's when I shifted to low carb instead, where I shifted out of ketosis. I allowed myself to have some other carbs, like my plantain chips that I normally use for salsa and stuff like that. A little bit of chocolate, stuff like that. Yeah, no beer, because gluten-free is no beer. Keto, you can have beer on, but you have to really watch the carbs. Stouts tend to have lower carbs. Again, it depends on your carb tolerance, though, Dogfather. Because some people can have like under 100 carbs a day and they'll be in ketosis. Other people have to stick under 50 a day. I typically have to stick under 30, around the 20 mark. So for me, beer is pretty much right out, unless I go for the really, there is the 3 carb a bottle, like 99. It's the light beer that's like gluten removed. I can have one kind of beer if I really want one. But alcohol really actually upsets my stomach these days, so I normally don't even miss it at this point. Hey, XP Rich, what's up? Right, exactly. Yeah, Carrie Michael, that's it. You miss the tasty stuff, but you don't miss feeling bad. That's exactly it. Not a lot of. We're talking diets, because I just went back on ketosis, XP, to control my gastrointestinal issues. And I'm feeling better, so that's happy. But yeah, that's what I found too, is that, like, I knew a person once who was diagnosed with diabetes and still drank Coke. And I was like, what? Yeah, right, XP, for sure. No, we were talking low carb, like keto, and what alcohols and stuff are permitted on it. And bottom line is, you figure out how many carbs your body can tolerate and still stay in ketosis, and you can go that high. So like hard liquors are allowed, and even beer is allowed. I used to have stouts when I was on keto, and there was a point where I was on keto, but I was allowing myself more gluten, and I would allow myself a good stout every once in a while, because stouts tend to be more in the 8 to 12 grams of carbs. You would not approve. No, yeah, that's it. But again, Dogfather, it comes down to, do I want to feel good or do I want to feel crappy? And I will always choose feel good. I have been through the feel crappy. I really don't want to stay in the feel crappy. Especially now with my new pupper. Like, I feel like I haven't been able to enjoy half of her being here because I've been sick. I've been feeling bad. So, when you're when you've got that going on, it just kind of eats your mind. You know, it kind of eats your brain. Your brain is always kind of dwelling on it. And so for me, I long ago made the decision that whatever I had to cut out of my diet to feel good, I was going to do. That's it. Because I would always rather have the energy to enjoy my life than to have the tasty food. I can always find a different tasty food that I can like. Like, that's kind of like the attitude that my doctor told me. She's just like, don't concentrate on what you can't have anymore. Concentrate on the things that you can have that are really awesome. And I followed that advice, and I found that to work on any diet. Yeah, I liked a good, actually, right around this time of year, I love pumpkin stouts. There was a really, I forget which brewing company made it. I used to be really into craft beer. Really, 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 really. To the detriment of my waistline. But it was tasty. It was all tasty. Yeah, I do miss some of that. I miss the Dogfish Head Pumpkin Ale. You know, every once in a while, like I allow myself to glutenate every once in a while. And I'll let myself have a beer every once in a while. But anything more than a beer alcohol level, and even the high alcohol beers will upset my guts. So I have to be careful. Enjoy it if you're on here and you're young and you can drink and eat anything you want without health problems. Enjoy it, folks. Enjoy it while you can. Enjoy it while you can. Because, yeah, no guarantees that you get to eat all that all the time, all your life. So, yeah, can't have it at all, Valadar. Yeah, oh yeah. Normal muffins have tons of carbs, like 30 to 40 grams. Like, you'd be out of keto with one muffin. You don't realize until you go low carb, you don't realize how much carbs is in everything we eat. Oh yeah, Yvandar, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, and weirdly, I find that I don't really miss it. Like, I miss the social aspect of it. I miss, when we're at our wedding dinner, I'm going to miss having a little bit of wine with everybody, right? I'm going to miss that social aspect. But lately I'd gotten more used with David as I noticed how alcohol affected me. I've gotten used to just having mocktails. Although they tend to be sugary, so, then on the keto, that's kind of out too. But it is what it is. But yay, solidarity, Valadar. You and I can be we can be the designated drivers, the eternal designated drivers. Yeah, it doesn't matter, right? In my opinion, Pendrake, if you're going to try a pumpkinated beer, the really worthwhile one is the Dogfish Head Pumpkin Ale. Because Dogfish Head in general is superior. And I believe that their pumpkin ale is like the best pumpkin beer. There was a pumpkin stout I tried once, and I just can't remember which company. It may have been a Canadian company. I don't remember which company produced it, but it was pretty tasty. It was very cinnamon. Like, it had a strong, like, kind of spicy undertone that was really nice. But it depends on, like, like if you like different flavors in your beer. Like, a lot of people don't. A lot of people just want the flavor of the beer, of the malt and the hops and everything. And they don't really want a lot of extra stuff playing. I always liked the variations on stuff and the flavors, so I would always try stuff. Oh, look into their beer if you haven't. If you like IPAs, you should get you some Dogfish Head. I think they're in Maine. They're an East Coast brewer. But their stuff is all over the place. Like, they're all over in every liquor store, so. But yeah, their IPAs have been pretty award-winning over the years. But I actually like their stuff, some of their other beers a little better. I also really like North Coast Brewing, which now I'm right next to, but, I don't drink much anymore, so I'm right next to being relative. I think they're up in Oregon. Or they're either in Northern California or they're Oregon. I can never remember. But I like their Scrimshaw lager a lot. All right, let's start with some NMMs, and it's very simple when these spaces are very long and straight, although you wouldn't think so. And if you want this cloth to, like, be suggesting that it's kind of rippling, what you have to look at is actually the underlying folds. Because what's funky about this, and what makes this border seem like a stiff brocade instead of a rippling cloth, is both that it's sculpted straight and there are folds underneath it on this orange that we can see, but they're not echoed in the border. So they're in Delaware. Okay. Maybe pumpkin. Oh, yeah. I've heard about that. Yeah. Ciders always put me to sleep. Like, back when I was gaming a lot, I would sometimes have some woodchuck cider or something, and it just always put me asleep, so I stopped drinking it. Like, I would just get so tired when I was role-playing with that stuff. So first, let's get this area down here. Since light will fall down, it'll kind of catch. Think of it catching like in a cup down here. So this little thing is going to kind of catch the light right down there. And now we have to ask ourselves, okay, so are we going to try to highlight where the folds are? Let's try that. So there's a little fold that comes out right here. Let's pretend that the fold actually is sculpted into the gold. And we'll put a little highlight right along that area. I'm going to block in my highlights first on this one instead of my shadows. Otherwise, I tend to love seasonal beers. I love dark beers, so I used to love dark beers. So winter is my season as far as beers go. Not a big fan of real hoppy beers. Unless it's really hot out, then I can do it. Like, IPAs are usually not my wheelhouse. They are David's, though. He loves them. I can have like a tiny little sip of like David's alcohol. So if I really want something he's drinking, I usually steal a little bit. So then we got a bit up top here, because it looks like we've got a fold coming out right here, and then we've got kind of this, the whole cloth comes up like this. So I can see my fold there. I'm highlighting right up to that. Feeling better, Twisted Oma. So I'm hoping that continues. But yes, so far I'm having a good Friday for that. Also, hello Karinico, I have not seen you in chat, so maybe you were not here. But the Great British Bake Off does kick off this Friday for us Americans. So today is the initial kickoff Bake Off season. So if you are a fan of the Great British Baking Show, which you should be, and if you're not, where have you been living? And you should go out and watch it. Yeah, we're back. We're back today. I'm so happy. So happy. All right, I need to choose a shadow color here. Probably need a couple of them. I tend to use russet brown, but russet can sometimes not be dark enough. So we'll see what I decide to do here. I don't really want to use Rogue Shadow on here. I don't want to use that reddish brown, so I may actually just mix a tiny bit of walnut into my russet brown. Mixing a little bit of black or walnut into russet is a totally valid way to get a nice darker version of this brown. It's a unique brown. It's pretty middle toned, and it's if you want something that's not too red and more yellow, then this is the deal. Yeah, I'm not a milk stout fan. Maybe it's because I don't like dairy. Like in general, I don't like the taste of milk and dairy. Yeah, I think it's on Netflix for us. Agent Marble. If it's properly bottled, the mead should last quite a long time, similar to wine, although different meads are probably different as far as, and it's like alcohol content there, I think, Twistoma, that would determine. If he hasn't bottled it, it's dead, I would think. You gotta, yeah, once it gets to its point, you have to bottle it, but I don't think it's good if it's just sitting around. But, I mean, I'm trying to think. Some of my friends who brew mead, I think they keep it from season to season, at least a few years. And if you have a very high alcohol mead, it would probably last for longer. I'm gonna mix, I think I am gonna use just a little bit of walnut in with some russet too to make a, let's go back here. Let's look at our NMM progression. I'm making it at this point. NMM gets pretty complicated. Just a tiny bit, not really even a full drop, more of a half drop of the walnut. Because walnut's real heavy and I don't want to push this too dark. So we'll do 3 drops of russet. And if you, like, you could start a little darker. If you just mix some russet into your rich leather, you could start a little darker with your NMM and skip over the russet one entirely. I started lighter here because I wanted it, I had that dark purple and I wanted it to stand out. So that's the reason that I went that way. But you could very easily just essentially skip the russet brown step if you just added a little russet to your rich leather and then go straight to the russet brown plus walnut or black. Here I'm mixing intermediate shades because I want some blending. I know I'm going to need to blend because so many of these areas where the gold is are really straight. Really, really straight and flat. So when that happens, then you tend to have to blend more to get your NMM to look good on borders. You could even technically, if you wanted a dark gold, you could start with the russet brown. Or even a more reddish color. I think I might need just a little bit more. Hey Kodiak, how's it going? We're talking beer. We started on diets, like, because my keto diet is progressing well. And then we transitioned to what alcohol you could have on the keto diet, and then we transitioned just to beer. Because, you know, we haven't talked about beer in this chat for a long time. Totally valid conversational topic. My favorite beer, for the record, is Brother Thelonious, which is a beer by North Coast, and it's a quad Belgian. It's a little too high alcohol for me now, sadly. But if David pops one open, then I can have a little. Yep, yeah, well, you can have, as I was explaining, you can have beer on keto. You just have to make sure, you know, usually it's stouts because they're slightly lower carb, or you're drinking the light beer. Light beer tends to be, there's low carb light now. That's not bad. Yeah, Brother Thelonious was always my favorite beer when I was drinking. I do like Belgians. I like big fruity beers, and I cannot lie. So I'm going to put a little bit of that russet brown kind of in to break this area up and create that rippling effect. See, we have to create this shadow here that you see in the cloth because it's not actually sculpted onto the surface of the brocade border. So you can see now we're getting that broken up effect. We haven't had Brother Tea in the fridge for a while, probably because David knows it's very tempting for me and that I really don't want to drink it. I do have the habit of not keeping things in the house that really tempt me that I can't have. It's just a recipe for disaster because when I get really stressed, my willpower erodes. But yeah, I mean, I would just take a sip of his when he had it. He tends to like sours and IPAs though, so like a lot of his beer is not tempting to me in the slightest. So that's actually pretty good for being on diet. All right, so I'm going to just put that line right down the middle to break up these sections using my black plus russet. But as I go up to the top here where everything is lighter, I'm just going to go with straight russet brown to line that area because I don't want it to be too dark. Brother Thelonious. T-H. It's named after Thelonious Monk, the jazz dude. Thelonius, I think. So yeah, so when you're doing the line here, when you're trying to separate, because this brocade has two sections, right? It's like got that line down the middle. When you're in your highest highlight areas, way up top, use a lighter dark brown to separate those. Don't use a liner, but you can go with like the russet brown. You might even just keep your rich leather as the shadow there, but we'll see how it works. Yeah, Thelonious. Thank you, Crowley. Hey, Silver Tongue. Personally, I'm going to do a flying carpet. The plan is to do a flying carpet, Silver Tongue, and to have him like standing on a carpet, like he's trying to like get it to fly. Because he looks like a carpet merchant to me. He looks kind of Arabic, kind of Arabesque, and little Middle Eastern with the hat and everything. And so I decided he was a flying carpet merchant. Or at least he was a carpet merchant, and he is trying to get this carpet to fly. But as far as like how to do text on scrolls, hey NGC. I mean, as far as how to do text, I mean, the very basic thing that I was always taught in lettering class, and I'll give it to you for free now, is start with the center letter. Like if you're going to put like actual readable words on the scroll instead of just scribbles, start with the center letter of whatever word you are, center it right down the middle, and then work out. And that will make sure your word is always centered, and usually you can space out your letters a lot better without getting the smushed letters effect. That is a basic lettering tip that still works and is good for miniature painting. But as far as getting like ideas for what to put on the scroll, you have to ask yourself who this dude is, right? Oh, Warsteiner's a good beer. I've had Warsteiner. That's nice. Yeah, that's a good beer. You're right, Dogfather. It's a good one. Yeah, brewing does take a little bit of know-how and patience. It's kind of like bonsai. Patience is a requirement. Gonna kind of blend in my little highlight there. Our local, if you're ever in Denton and you want to pick up Warsteiner, Metzler's has it. It's a German deli / alcohol store. With German deli / barbecue place / yeah. it's rather unique. It's very Denton. Alrighty. So now we've got kind of our shadows kind of blocked in, but I feel like they need to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to grab some of my shadow color here. Probably I'll mix it with a little bit of my russet brown. And I'm going to shade down a little bit in the middle of that, toward the top of that russet brown spot. And there we go. So now I've got a couple of much darker areas worked in. So now I want to use some russet brown to blend those in. So this is like, obviously, if you're trying to put extra effort into your NMM. But you do need those dark spaces to do your non-metallic metal. They are required. It will not look like NMM unless you put both dark and light in it. Oh, and of course for this you need to not have too much paint on your brush. You see that I have just a little bit too much there, or I had a drop of water. It's hard to tell which. I'm going to come in and scrub that off with some water. So you really want to get very little paint on your brush for this. So everything I'm using is thinned at least 2 to 1. There we go. So that's looking nice now. That's got a little bit of variation. It makes the cloth kind of feel like it has a little bit of drape and movement, that border, instead of just being flat and straight like it looks over here. So it creates an illusion that that you've got variation on that cloth. Now I'm going to pop a little tiny white highlight on it. Again, the white highlight is really going to make it seem like it's metallic. There, I'll get that a little bit. Yeah, sadly I feel like I waited too long to visit Germany because I would have loved to try all the dark German beers. And now I'm like, my health makes it impossible. So if I go, I'll just have to have tiny sips of whatever David orders. So yeah, with your white especially, because I'm thinning my white more than my other colors, unloading your brush becomes like absolutely necessary. Or you do what I just did and get a big blobble of white, which is not what you want. So I'm going to do this again, pick up just a little white on my brush. If you don't want to spend a lot of time unloading your brush, then dip less of your brush into the paint. Let's go up here. Just a little bit of white. That's a lot better. World's oldest still operating, huh? Yeah, I could see that with 1040. I don't know. I mean, there's some Belgian breweries. There's some like actually Abbott breweries. There's one in the Netherlands. I don't know how long it's been in continuous operation. Though I bet 1040 is kind of close to like the oldest, if not the oldest. You're right. But there we go. Hey there, Candlewick. Thanks for the Prime sub. Also nice to meet you. I haven't seen you on before. So if you're new, welcome. I am Anne. We are doing gold NMM on our borders today, so I was just describing how to make that look a little bit more ripply when it's sculpted very flat. Alright, so now let's do this circular part, which is going to be around a gemstone. We haven't decided the color of that gemstone yet. But I want to get that down. So on a circle, you've got like kind of 4 cardinal points on your circle. And this is true also of like bracers on an arm, anything like that. When you've got a round surface, you've got 4 points of highlights. And you think of it as a highlight at each cardinal point, assuming that straight up, wherever your light source is north. So I'll start sketching that in with kind of my middle yellow. And the upper surface in general is going to be lighter, except here it's not going to be lighter on this side because it's right under his beard. But in general, normally the whole upper surface would be lighter than the bottom surface. So let's grab my ochre color. It's good to do it at this point just because you haven't touched the actual gemstone yet or done anything with it, so you can, you know, be a little messy and you're not going to have a problem. I did get a little bit of gold on his beard, but that's easy. He's got a black beard, so it's easy to touch up. And I'm not even going to bother to touch it up until I'm done with this area because I know I'm going to keep hitting that strand beard. So very little paint on the brush. Lots of brush unloading. My paint is very thin, so it will come off in thin lines. If you don't thin your paint, it will not come off in the thin lines you need to do this sort of detailing. And then we've got an under reflection. I probably need to paint in these straps and stuff in here. They're probably going to be brown like the satchel, since they're not like an important detail, but I probably should deal with them soon. I have russet brown mixed up and out already, so I probably should just go in here at this point and real quick block them in. Since I'm painting around them, it's reminding me that I need to paint them. They're a small detail that you could easily forget. So get those blocked in. And then we can highlight them a little bit differently as we move on, but I want to get those in place. But yeah, it'll be kind of sad not to be able to drink at my wedding in a month, but I'm sure my guests will more than make up for my lack of wine consumption. I know my mom and David's mom will. And probably my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law and my dad. I think they'll manage. I don't know if any of you are wine drinkers or if you're all beer and hard liquored people. Yeah, Kodiak, for sure. My family knows how to drink wine. Let's just put it that way. And David's family are not slackers in that department. I'm just putting a little bit of extra shading in on the leather straps here so that when I come back in, I can highlight them well. Oh, I'm not sorry. I'm also the designated driver, and so's Valendar, Big Eiler, because of health issues. So can't have it now. But you know what? I get a lot more done. I gotta say that. Back when I was having a beer in the evening, I was easily distractible and I didn't get a lot done. And now, I definitely notice that I get a lot more done since I don't have that evening beer. And evening times had to be my productive times when I was writing my book for the first draft. All right. Speaking of which, National Novel Writing Month is coming. It's November, of course. I know a lot of you are not nanoers, but just saying, I will be doing it. You are welcome to friend me if you are also going to be doing it. I'm going to be working on a new book this time, since my 2 other books will either be ready to publish or, in the case of the second book, in editing. So yeah, new book. Dry red's your favorite? Yeah, I mean, wine, when it comes down to it, I think people make it more complex than it really is. You can get a really good wine for relatively cheap. And I think the most important thing with wine, just like the most important thing with beer, is to just find the combo, the flavor combo, and the profile that you enjoy the most. If you're trying to be fancy and make it match with food, it's not as hard as you think. But I mean, even David and I were into wine, and we still always ask the hotel sommelier or the restaurant sommelier like what they recommend, or the waiter what they recommend. Because if we want to match to a dish, we weren't near that pro. But in general, Pinot Noir is my favorite when I have a little bit. Funny NGC. Right. Yeah, well, some stores will give little classes and things. And some wine bars will also give classes and tastings. If you're really interested, look around. You can also, I think there's at least one good book on the market, if I recall, that kind of guides you through tasting wines, and can set you up to understand what, all the terms are about. That went way too white on me. Way too white. Let's see if I can scrub it off, or it's too late. It's too late. All right, I'm going to have to go over it. So sometimes you overwhelm your gold with your top highlights, and it just goes, especially on a small surface like this, you lose the yellow. And you end up with this very washed out looking area like that. Oh, National Novel Writing Month. It's November, actually, Kodiak. I always do it. I have for like the last, oh my gosh, like the last almost 15 years. I'll have to look. Yep, NaNoWriMo. National Novel Writing Month. If you ever wanted to write a novel, NaNoWriMo gives you the framework to make yourself do it over the course of a month. Pretty much running headlong into noveling. It is kind of a hoot. It essentially believes that giving you a firm deadline, a ton of social support, and a crazily little amount of time to do it in gives you results. And actually, it's right. Yeah, look it up. It's fun, Kodiak. It's really super fun. The point of NaNoWriMo is not to write a brilliant novel. The point of NaNoWriMo is to get the words on the page as fast as you possibly can. Once you've got your rough draft out, and everybody's rough draft is crap, almost everybody. We don't like the people who have beautiful rough drafts, but once you have the words out, then you can make it into the book that you really want it to be. Yeah, I write, so do it, Kodiak. Do it. Look into it. NaNoWriMo is super fun. And if you really want to write and you want to get back into trying it, I have many favorite books that I can recommend. I also attended a couple of workshops, but in general, I've learned a lot more from actually writing and from books, I think, than I did from my workshops. Yeah, millions of people around the world do NaNoWriMo every year. I think it started in like around 2000, or just before. I don't remember what the first year of Nano was. But it was just a little group of people in the Bay Area who decided that it would be fun to try to write a novel in a month. And one of them grew on to essentially create a nonprofit for it, Chris Batty, and he since has moved on, but Nano is a official nonprofit, and they part of their proceeds go to like funding writing programs for kids, so it's really cool and worthwhile. All right, let's try this again. Just a tiny bit of white highlight on this side. It's looking a little better. Tiny bit up top. I want yellow down below. It's easy to lose the yellow here because this is so thin. So just do the best you can And if you feel like you really are it's just getting bleached out by the highlighting, then we can put a yellow glaze over it if we must to give it that color. Good, Silver Tongue, good. Yeah. Now, this is the prep period, and they've got some posts and stuff, and they've usually got some awesome, like, prep materials. Like, just kind of a guide, like, to kind of say, hey, here's a, you can plan your novel. Here's some tools. You don't have to go in with a plan, but I recommend, like, kind of knowing your characters and your world before you go in, and your villain, whoever that is. I find that, although I am a planner, I used to be a pantser. I used to be a person who just wrote whatever came into my head. If you know your characters and your world, though, and your villain, and why they're doing things and what they want, you don't really need a plot, per se. You can get away with a lot. But if you like to plan, there are some excellent plot books. How-to plot books. Well, what exactly, I guess the first question is, what do you need help in? Because if you need help in just like the fact that a novel is overwhelming, then probably the best book on writing out there is Bird by Anne Lamott. It's a very inspirational book. If you... The other one that everybody refers to is Writing Down the Bones by Natalie, what's her last name? I can never remember it. But if you want some hardcore plotting stuff, I actually went, because I was good at world building. Like, world building has always kind of been my forte. But I was bad at plotting. And so finally, in desperation, I went and studied screenwriting for a while. And that helped immensely. Because they've got definitely a system, right? There's a system by which like scripts are written for Hollywood, but the nice thing about that system is that you can stretch it. Once you know it, just like anything, just like any other set of rules, story structure is a set of rules that you can bend once you know it. All right. I'm trying to think of like good. I mean, definitely. Definitely Bird by Bird is one of those books that I think starting with is good. It is part inspiration and part kind of manual of how not to get into trouble. A lot of the problem with writing is just your mindset. You know, we all go into it with expectations, and then we either our first draft sucks, or we are having trouble, and we assume that because it's not easy, it's bad, and all that kind of thing. So I feel like Bird by Bird is really a good book to kind of just read and get into the writer's groove with. I kind of was messy at doing this border here, so I'm going to redo it. Yes, thank you. Writing Down the Bones, Natalie Goldberg. Natalie's kind of zen, but her book is actually used in teaching writing in like high school and college courses. So it's a great book for inspiration, and again, it can give you that writer vibe. But if you want the basics of story and you are not afraid to go into the screenwriting realm to get them, my favoriteest ever book just on simple plotting, both for movies and for books, is called Save the Cat by Blake Snyder, who is now deceased, sadly, because he was awesome. But it's a fantastic book, although warning, okay, so warning. Once you read Save the Cat, you will understand the script of any movie that you watch. And sometimes this can be disruptive to your enjoyment. So, if you really don't want to kind of understand movie structure to the point where you're kind of spoilering yourself and going, oh, that's the all is lost moment, then don't read Save the Cat. Because you'll start seeing the beats in every movie you watch. Every movie. But it's fascinating. See, and I don't mind spoilering myself so much. Also, with really complex movies, like Lord of the Rings, for example, or something like that with numerous character arcs, you have a hard time spotting the beats, so it's not quite so evident. Some movies really bludgeon you over the head with the beats, and some don't. But yeah, if you've got absolutely no knowledge of plotting and you don't mind understanding the structure of the movies you go to see, then Save the Cat. Every day. I love it. If you just like to write and like just write freeform, like what is it? Damn. Oh, Story Trumps Structure, I think, is the name of the book. Story Trumps Structure is excellent for if you are a just want to write, don't want to plan. Like if you hate planning. Oh, okay, Kodiak. Yeah. Pick up Save the Cat then, because actually, weirdly, you might enjoy movies a little bit more after you read it when you can see under the hood, so to speak. Because then it becomes kind of fun to spot which beat is which point in the movie. At least for me, it is. David gets annoyed at me. Sadly, because we've talked about my rating, he understands a little bit of Save the Cat now, so he's like, that was the whiff of death, wasn't it? And I was like, yes, it was. Yeah, Big Apple, because once you know the structure, you know like what should happen, and if you've been paying attention, you're like, the logical character to use for this beat is here. You know? So yeah. I think that a lot of people like Pan having that kind of like structure, but I think that those people aren't getting the fact that again it's not like a formula that you do like to the letter every time the same way. Its beauty lies in the fact that it is a structure that you can use to make your stories better. And there are infinite iterations on it. So yeah. Anyway, try to start with those, Kodiak, and if those don't get you in the mood for writing, I don't know what will. Also, start thinking about what you might want to write. Like if you wanted to write your whole life, but start thinking more about what genre you want to write. Usually, it's the genre you enjoy writing or reading, rather. So if there's a genre you really like reading, then that's probably a good place to think about, because you'll know the tropes. You'll know the things that reader expectations, because readers expect certain things from certain genres. For example, in thrillers, I learned this recently because I'm not a big thriller reader, but in thrillers, one trope that is expected by the readers is that the protagonist must have a personal confrontation with the villain during the finale. And if you drop that out of your book, thriller readers will be rife mad with you. So there's things like that. I think those things are always really interesting to see what tropes are in, really part of the various genres. Same thing with romances having a happily ever after or a happily ever after for now. Happily for now, I guess is the HFN. Which has been changed because over the years it was always happily ever after, but with modern romance it's gotten to be a happy for now isn't okay, is actually acceptable. Which I like because, being on my second romance myself, I understand that, it isn't always a happily ever after the first time. So it's cool that both things are acceptable in romance. Yeah, it's really cool. The different genre conventions are really interesting. What do you read, Kodiak? What kind of books do you like to read? There we go. Just taking a little bit of my ochre color and brushing it back over this, make sure that I keep my yellow color around this big circle. In a Hallmark movie, yeah, those are really predictable. Those stick very close to traditional structure. And the happily ever after is a necessity in a Hallmark movie, by my understanding. I haven't watched that type of thing for a while, but I know somebody who writes them. Okay, so lots. Great, yeah. So then think about what might suit your temperament. So another thing to think about is length. Mysteries and romances, and even thrillers, can be shorter. You could go 60 to 80,000 words, so it takes less time to write the novel, and you're less likely to be bored with it as a writer. And fantasy and sci-fi tend to be a little longer. Although sci-fi these days, people write like 60,000 word science fiction novels, especially if it's like military sci-fi or sci-fi adventure. You could totally get away with like a shorter novel with that. But fantasy is almost always long. Typical fantasy is more like 100K. 80 to 120K for fantasy. Because epic. Yeah. Any particular flavor of fantasy? There's a lot of different ones. Do you like epic? Do you like lighthearted fantasy? Do you like kind of dark dystopian fantasy? I picked up Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight again last night. His freaking miniatures Kickstarter pulled me in because it spoilered me on a character. Like, I thought the character was gone, but then the character obviously shows up in book 3, and I'm like, it was one of my favorite characters. So then I saw that character actually recurred, and I was like, crap, now I have to read through to book 3. So thanks, Brandon Sanderson, for your spoilers on your miniatures Kickstarter. But yeah, fantasy is challenging and easy all at once. Like fantasy, you get to do anything you want with it, but it's also a lot of world building. Although there is lately a genre convention for like very D&D fantasy, especially if you're writing more lighthearted humor or adventure. Lit RPG is now a actual genre where the convention of the characters getting sucked into the role playing game is actually its own genre now. I remember books like that from back in the 80s and 90s when I was the 80s, especially when I was a teenager. I remember a couple of characters getting sucked into the D&D game novels, but they were never enough of them to be really their own genre, and now there are. Yeah, I'm much more. I'm not a really lighthearted. Like my characters face serious challenges, and there is violence, but I'm not super dark. Yeah, that's funny, Silver Tongue. Yeah, essentially, Silver Tongue, I found out that, well, I don't want to spoil it on the stream. Crap. Let's just say that I found out a certain character that I really enjoyed was essentially alive or in some capacity existed still. And that essentially made me start up, even though I had stopped, but now I've started reading again. And now I'm past the part that kind of like I was cold on, and so now I'm reading it again. Oh yeah, Gideon the Ninth, right? Dogfather or no? Big Apple. I read the first one. I didn't read the second one. Japanese trope for like losing is there actually a Japanese trope for like stopping reading something and then getting spoiled on it and picking it back up again? Like seriously, is that a word? Like I need to write that down if that's so. Isekai? Isekai? Born in another world. Oh, okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, yeah, urban fantasy, very popular genre. None of the Ninth. Yep. I heard it. I don't know. Somebody was reading the second one and it really turned them off in my rating group. Said it was really kind of harder to follow. I don't know. Maybe I'll pick it up at some point. I enjoyed Gideon the Ninth. It was a fun, edgy, kind of interesting, very different. I mean, necromancers in space. What more can you ask for, really? Oh, okay, yeah. But you know what? If anybody had a term for getting spoiled on something and then starting to like getting back into it, like the Japanese would. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, cool, cool, Kai. Yay, writers reunite. I'm giving you a fist pump. I'm not punching you. Yeah, cool. I write personally. My genre is epic fairy tale adventure, which isn't really a genre, but I'm gonna make it one. I like fantasy that's strongly based on fantasy and folklore, or sorry, fairy tales and folklore, and I like very adventure based stories. So I'm going to darken down this area. So we're doing the same thing over here that we did over here. We're putting dark spaces in where it makes sense. So here, it kind of coincides with this fold right there. So, and then over the shoulder, it would get brighter and round out like we're doing right there. So that gives us that shinier look. Yeah, yeah, Uprooted. I like Naomi Novik in general. I don't read all of her stuff, but I love the latest one, the Dark Academy one that she's writing, Scholomance. I really like that one. Waiting for the new book to come out, and I like Uprooted. It was well done. Uprooted is very close to what I write, like kind of based on modern fantasy or modern like original like based strongly on traditional fairy tales and folklore, but then twisted into a fantasy setting and iterated on. Like that pretty much is what I write. Oh, cool, Big Apple. That's nice. Yeah. Some writers, I mean, some writers are just simpler on the plotting side, and some writers are really elegant on the plotting, and you just have a really hard time. Like, and all of us, all the writers, all of us writers are different. So it's like finding a writer that really like is wow, I can't figure out this person's like plot lines. It's fascinating. It's cool. That's great. I'm more an immersive reader where I don't necessarily try to figure out the book, but sometimes it's very evident, I think, where the book is going. But yeah, well, my books will be out next year, so I'm waiting for my covers, and also I need to finish my edits on book 2. And then I will put them out for the world to read, and the world can decide whether they like them or not. It's kind of like when I was selling models on eBay for the first time. I had no idea if anybody was going to consider my models worth money. I just kind of put them out there, and over time I ended up like it would always wow me when somebody was willing to pay like over $100 or even over $200 for one of my models. So I consider this a grand experiment, and we shall see how it goes. So here on the sleeve, I'm going to go a little more subtle. A lot of the light down here is going to be more reflection, bounced light. So I'm going to do a strong highlight up here, drop into a shadow, and then do a long kind of like sloping highlight that doesn't go up too high. Yeah, I also have a lot of formatting to do. Doing the independent publishing route is a lot of work. I haven't had any energy for it since the puppy and my sickness. Yeah, she's very unpredictable. Yeah, the Locktomb series is very unpredictable. I'll give you that. Like, I did not expect the ending in the first book. I was a little pissed at the ending, but I didn't expect the ending. Well, and Star Wars is based on like a fantasy, like it's based on the hero's journey, which is very much a fantasy, like originally anyway, a fantasy structure. But it's okay if it's a fantasy version of Star Wars. Like, who cares? As long as you've got new things to explore and new people and new places. Like, that story has been told and retold so many times, and you know what? People still want to read it. So every story under the sun is derivative of something. So don't stop working on your thing just because you think it's too derivative of X, Y, or Z. Okay, I'm going to actually, I decided he was a carpet salesman because he kind of looks like a merchant to me. More than a mage. I know he's a mage, but he looks like a merchant. So I'm going to put a carpet on here and have him standing on one. I'll clip him off his base and we'll do a carpet. But essentially the story is that he's trying to make the carpet fly with the scroll. So, because he looks kind of, like Arabian Nights, in my opinion, like his costume is. So I thought that would be kind of a cool thing to do. So I'm going to paint a carpet, a miniature carpet, and then do some text and stuff, yeah. Yeah, Arcane. It's all the same structure, though. It's all Hero's Journey. It's just been around for a long time before people quantified it. The same structure. So we're going to bring up the highlights here on top of the arm. Yeah, it would be a great NPC. Flying carpet salesman. Is your carpet going to stall out in mid-flight? Make sure you use a reputable flying carpet salesman. So gearing up that highlight, but I'm not going to bring it up as high as this one. Yes, disreputable flying carpet salesman, even better NPC. Disreputable wand of wonder salesman, even better NPC. Disreputable magical item salesman in general. Yeah, when it gets to fall, I always want to write. It's my doing nano every year has gotten me in the tuned to write mood the minute it starts getting cooler out. Oh, that's fantastic, Arcane Void. I like that one. I like the goblin idea. All right, so let's take some dark. Remember, I need more dark in here for this to look shimmery, properly shimmery. I hear the puppy borking around in there, so it's almost time. But hopefully she keeps herself busy for a little while longer. She has a chew, so she has a bone and a chew. She should be fine. I am hoping now that I'm feeling better that I can finally get us on a decent, predictable schedule. because she is a much better behaved puppy when we are on a routine. Like, she's finally learning to settle in the evening and in the hobby room when David and I are working on painting. Yeah, exactly, Ink Wolf, right? So the brighter you pop your white highlight, the shinier your NMM is going to look. It's really going to start picking up the light. I try to do that only at places like on the tops of things, so that it can really show. Whoa, we have a Reaper John sighting. Hey, oh wow, you just went up to like, you're above Justin now on the sightings, Reaper John. Hope you're doing good. It is good to see you. Yes, we're talking about disreputable magic item vendors and how we can have fun with them as NPCs, John. Before that, we were talking about beer and writing, because it's Friday. There we go. Just sharpen up that shadow a bit. So notice that I really am just leaving that shadow on the inside of the sleeve. Oh, do you? Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we just don't get the benefit of your presence. Well, I'll start giving you a higher percentage then. Like, instead of like with me, your host Anne, and 99.5% Quindy, it will now be me, your host Anne, 97% Quindy, and 3% John, and half a sliver of a percent of Justin. All right, let's do these. The little short ones are really easy. So here, I'm just really gonna put a tiny highlight in. First, I need, it looks like I've got a little bit of rub off there. I do not, I mean, I guess this could be John if I'd painted him like paler with like a reddish beard. This could have been the Reaper John Action Mini, but instead he is our flying carpet salesman. Our disreputable, possibly disreputable flying carpet salesman. We'll get there. I don't know, he's talking. Most cardboard cutouts don't talk. I guess if you put a word bubble above his head, like a cardboard cutout word bubble. Yes, flying carpet salesman of questionable repute. Exactly. So I think I'm going to surprise David by making ribs today, since my gut seems to be like not terrible. I'm thinking about it. I have ribs that I need to use. So now a little tiny highlight right there. Just a little bit. And on the point that's most toward the outside. So not buried underneath the scroll and not buried underneath the cloak. So just a little bit of highlight right there. Yeah, the only thing keeping me from making ribs is just like, you know, I'm just started feeling better. Maybe I don't want to go there. Maybe I want to stick to blander food for like another day or two. go. So you got that little highlight right there. Let's do the tabard down the front here. So these are very straight, and there are many tabards in the miniatures world that are like this, just pretty much flat cutouts. Hard to figure out where to highlight. If you can see where they tuck into the belt, then start at the top and highlight that area where they're sticking out from the belt, because that usually does pop out a little bit and catch the light. Put a shadow underneath it, and then put as many ripples in as makes sense. With this, there's going to be a shadow on either side here and here, because if you look at it, you can even see the shadow cast by the scroll. So it's going to actually cast till about there. So I'm going to have a shadow. I probably should just bring up highlights. So one thing you can do with corners is bring up a highlight, then a shadow, then a highlight. So let's show you guys that. So I'll kind of sketch it in real quick here. So your highlight, remember we've got a shadow right here. It's going to blend up to this highlight. Then at the corner, pop in a shadow on both sides. And this is useful for very small, like filigree type NMM as well. So pop that shadow in on both sides, right at the corner, right underneath the turn. Then bring up the highlight again in the middle. But take your time. Don't make the entire bottom all light. You want some variation. Like so. So then you've got, that's kind of a way to put like the ripple effect in without having any like noticeable folds. That would make sense. So let's go ahead and elaborate on this so you can kind of see. I'm going to put the shadow in up there. So I'm going to bring the russet brown down a bit, but the darkest shadow I'm going to keep for right under these areas. So bring in that dark, see it? Blend it in. And then a little bit of the darker shadow, which is russet brown mixed with a little bit of walnut. That goes at the very top. Very little paint on the brush, and using really a brush that I've kind of, when I want to hit those really, really thin lines, I'll load up the brush, and then I'll make it into a paddle and paint with the edge. So unload, 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 and I'm flipping it 180 degrees. So that then I get kind of a paddle. I've got a paddle and then a super fine edge. Super fine edge is what I paint with. So I've essentially flattened out my brush and I paint with that super fine edge when I want to do something like these little tiny lines between those. Because even when you've got a super tiny brush, or a brush with a super good point, sometimes you need that little bit of an edge, literally. See what I did there? Haha. All right, so now we've got some drama, some dimension there. Now we're going to pop up our highlights more using our lighter yellow. Yeah, you should. Gotta just make time for it. And I'm going to highlight a little heavier toward the middle here where this fold comes down the middle of the loincloth. Bringing that in with a harder highlight there. Since we can see that this is a fold, and so we got to duplicate that fold down here. And now we can bring in the white. Yeah, I feel the energy thing. Since I haven't been feeling well, I'm totally, my energy is at a super low in the evening. Last night I just went into the painting room with David and I just read a little bit while I hung out with him and the puppy instead of working on my model. Oh, speaking of working on my model, I will be doing my personal stream tomorrow. It's been a couple weeks because I haven't been feeling well, and then before that was ReaperCon. So I am going to go back and do my stream tomorrow at around 3:30 p.m. USA Central, Saturday, on twitch.tv/paintingbig. I'll be working probably on my Limbo Priestess. I'm working on her shiny black boots right now, and maybe doing a little freehand on them. I've been debating it. She's got kind of a band around the top of them that I could decorate, so I'm thinking about doing that. I've been working on brocade patterns for her cloth to try to figure them out. I'm planning to do a PDF on that for my Patreon this month, hopefully this month, at the $10 tier. Kind of how I take a brocade pattern and simplify it for 75mm. In the past, I've mostly done this thing only for a bust, so this will be a slightly smaller model. So if you haven't checked out my Patreon, go give it a look. It is a super value right now because it's like when you sign up at a given tier, you get all the tiers below it, pretty much for forever going back, my entire archive. So, worth it. And I've been doing this for over 3 years now, 3.5 years. So there's a lot of content. Then we've got our shinies going on down here. So look at how shinies we've gotten. Shiny, shiny, everybody, shiny. So shiny. So yeah. So come and hang out with me on Twitch tomorrow afternoon if you're just like hanging at home or whatever. Or bored somewhere in line. I appreciate the company as always. And as always also, I am open to questions while I am streaming. Just like on this stream. Don't think you're going to ever derail us. Just if you have a question, no matter how noob, go ahead and ask it. I never mind answering. I mean, that kind of stuff gives value to the stream. So kind of an S curve here, but there are definitely folds that we can follow. Hey, a carpet salesman must look reputable. He must keep up appearances. Otherwise, no one will buy his carpets. He must put on a good appearance. Otherwise, you might be suspicious. Oh, base boss. Mm-hmm. Boss of bases. Yes, a rare Reaper John appearance. But I must now give credibility to the fact that he exists. Despite your cardboard cutout theory, Quindy, which was really an excellent theory and could be true. That would be a bit much, Ink Wolf. I don't know. Maybe on the back. On the back, actually. Here, let me make a note. Let me see. I'll consider putting that on the back. It's the fine print is on the back of the scroll, right? That's the part you don't read. He doesn't turn it over. Hold on. Asterisk. All carpets 2, 3, for novelty purposes. This is really long, so I don't think I'll be able to do it. However, doing all sales final, doing all carpets, blah, 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 and then all sales final and big print at the bottom is actually doable. So. Yeah, sure. I mean, we have several. You want to do true metallics? Do true metallics. Do true metallics to an extremely high level. I just won a Grand Master with true metallics. So Noel is true metallics. He's just, got a lot of shading. But that's how you make true metallics look good, is with shading and highlighting. Just like with everybody else, like with every other technique. It's like the amount of work you put into it gives you your result. Yeah, and Grumpy Face. I mean, Mr. Grumpy is like the quintessential metallics exercise. But yeah, I mean, I did my Borka for the Privateer Press Grandmaster was true metallics as well, and I won. So obviously, there's room for true metallics. However, I do find that for true metallics to look really good on a miniature, whatever scale, you need big plates, big open expanses of metallic. The more filigree, fancy, tiny, fine, detailed areas you have, the harder it will be to make true metallics look good. And that's where I almost always reach for NMM. This has NMM because all the metallics is tiny borders and borders around gemstones and stuff like that. It would be very difficult to make this look good in true metallics. You'd lose a lot of the metallic shine because it's so small. I don't know if I do. Agent Marvel, that's a good question. Let me actually put that on my thing and I'll look into it. Because I do a lot of NMM, but I don't know that I've actually tackled true metallics lately, and I certainly am qualified to do it, so I will maybe think about doing a series on that. Alrighty. It is about that time, and I have a squeaky puppy in my background. But I will do just one more little highlight here. Then the squeaky puppy needs to go rampaging. So we've decided that she really is a Cerberus after all, but she's still Kiki. She's been she's very good through the stream in general. She gets a little bit frustrated. Yeah, it was, but I did a weird kind of, it's around, but it's not with me. Trash. Bronze Golem was TMM. It was really heavily corroded. But you could look at that one. Nice. Yeah, so tomorrow, yes, I'll be on my own stream tomorrow. When we come back on Monday, we're going to play with some of the Reaper washes. we're going to try to use, since we did some Zenith, we're going to try to use the super washes to create kind of a dark, moody turquoise on his clothing. By mixing in, we're going to experiment with using them, mixing them together, and also mixing in regular paint, and seeing how that works. So that is what we are doing on Monday, folks. Tomorrow on my stream, we'll be working on shiny boots and a bit of freehand. Alrighty. So there we go. So yes, Kitty is coming. Kitty. We did not do all the mapping of the Zenith on the Kitty, so we may need to spend a little time at the start of the stream just mapping in this this cloth to make sure everything is bright enough for the super washes to look good on them. All right. Okay, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you again. Those who don't catch my stream tomorrow, I will see you again Monday. Tomorrow again is at 3:30 USA Central Time, 3:30 p.m. USA Central Time. All right. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.